solution. So with this, I will turn the, one additional piece, sort of a housekeeping piece. On the right side of your screen or somewhere on your screen, you should see a window that has the options. And one of those options is a questions bar. The questions bar, you can monitor what's being asked and what the responses are by undocking the pane from the control panel. So to do this, it's the icon next to the X that you would want to select. Hover over it, you see it says undock pane from control panel. In so doing, you'll be able to see any questions that are posted, and then once us in the background who are producing this respond publicly, you'll be able to see the public responses as well. So that's how you can control that and see what's being asked and what's being answered. And so with that, I will turn the presentation over to Renee, and Dave, our producer, will be working the background magic to have that happen.
Okay, Renee, you should be good to go.
All right, can you all see my front slide that says Maximus Power School Special Ed?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here this morning, and I really appreciate the invitation to spend a few minutes this morning talking about our solution, which has been branded Power School Special Ed, powered by TyNet. I am Renee Pardo. I work for a company called Maximus, and we'll talk about who we are in just a second. But we do have our product TyNet, which has now become the integrated special education component of Power School. So I'm going to get us started just with a few slides this morning to put it into context, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you just a brief demonstration of a little bit of how that integration works with TyNet, our special ed case management system, which is what we'll be focusing on this morning. This is going to be a very high-level overview. So if you're interested in seeing more, if you're interested in a deeper dive into the system where you have the opportunity to really kind of ask a lot of questions that are specific to your district, please, we'll have contact information up at the end, and I am happy to provide that via the web. Generally takes about an hour. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So just a tiny bit about Maximus. You know about Pearson, you know about Power School, but Maximus has been in business since 1975. We're a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. We have offices in all 50 states and Canada. Our main support office is not too far from you all, which is Eatontown, New Jersey. We basically do business in all over the world. So we've been in business for a long time. We're a mature company. We're not going anywhere, I guess is the point. Our K through 12 practice, which is what I work for, has our special ed TyNet solution. And that is currently serving over 3 million students in more than 850 school districts across 21 states and Canada. And we also have a lot of clients in Pennsylvania as well. We have a lot of very large implementations like the City of Chicago, New York City Public Schools, and state of North Dakota. But we have a lot of smaller installations too, and probably more smaller than larger. In addition to our special education module that I'll be demonstrating today, we also have an instructional management, 504 accommodations, RTI, and service capture in terms of billing for Medicaid if that is something that you're doing. So those are some of our other modules. They're all seamless, but again, I'll be focusing on our special ed component this morning. So we've been partnering with Power School, with Pearson's Power School, since April of 2014. Pearson is really the leader in SIS systems, and we have a very heavy market share and are a leader in special education case management systems. So instead of either of us going out and spending millions of dollars to build one or the other, we thought it best to partner up and to create this integration so that, again, you're having everything in one system, which I think is really important. So in terms of the integration and what you're going to see a little flavor of this morning, we are integrated fully with Power School, leveraging their data API. And that integration really includes 3 components. First is a single sign-on. That's via Power Teacher or from the administrator portal. So again, you're not having to know 2 passwords, 2 usernames in 2 different systems. Once you're in Power Teacher or the administrator portal, you have access to TINA and the special ed case management piece. The second piece of the integration is our user interface integration. What that really allows you is the ability to view, to create, and to manage any of that special ed documentation within the PowerSchool application. And this can be particularly important for some of our general education teachers who may not need to be in a special ed system on a daily basis, like, say, a psychologist or a case manager. However, they do need to have access to review the IEP on occasion, so the fact that they're already working in Power Teacher or the administrator portal and are able to view that documentation right from the screens that they're used to being in every day, that's a real benefit in terms of the user interface integration. And then the third component is our data integration. What that means is you're going to always have consistent data in both applications. So anytime demographic data of a staff person changes, a phone number, a student moves and they have a new address, once that change has been made in PowerSchool, it's going to automatically update TINA using the data API in almost real time. So these aren't scheduled updates within about an hour. You're going to see that information has been updated in TINET as well. A new student comes into the district. Once they're registered in PowerSchool, they're available to start working on in the special ed case management system. So this is really a true data integration leveraging this API. And again, we've been doing this now since April of 2014, and we have quite a few implementations under our belt now that have been going very, very well. I'm going to not be able to spend a lot of time doing this today, but I do want to just point out that we at TINET compliance is extremely important. And we have something called a Pennsylvania model, meaning we house all of your Pennsylvania forms, we house all of your templates, do all of your PIMS and your PEN data reporting directly from the system in the format as required by the state. And so along with that, we need to make sure that the data we're entering in the system is consistent, it's accurate, and it meets all of those compliance guidelines. And we do that through something called guided action. So if someone puts in accidentally, next year's IEP date, it's going to say, hey, that needs to be changed. You put in, next year's date or last year's date. So it'll warn you about questionable entries that have been made, prevent invalid information from being entered, and then in addition to that, it's going to provide the person, the user, with intelligent, context-sensitive explanations for why the data that was entered was incorrect and what needs to be entered. I'm not going to go over this. This is our compatibility slide. A lot of folks are interested, especially if we're going to be the IT folks on the line, but you will have access to this PowerPoint deck after this morning. So I told you it wouldn't be death by PowerPoint. My last slide is just our contacts. I'm the one on the bottom there, Renee French-Pardo, and Dr. Phil Geiger, who is my leadership, and he can be contacted as well. So again, you'll have access to this, and we will we'll provide that to you in case you want to get in touch. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip us over here to a quick demonstration of the system. As you see here, I have the screen. I'm on the Apple Grove School District login screen for Power Teacher. I'm going to demonstrate this morning from Power Teacher, although it works almost exactly the same in the administrator portal. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and sign in, which I always sign in too early, so we'll sign in again. So now I'm in Power Teacher. I'm a biology teacher. I've got my biology classes listed up here in the left. I'm going to come over here. You know what? I need to move this over a little bit. So let me just try to minimize that. Okay, I'm going to come over here to my backpack icon. I'm going to click on that backpack icon. And now what I see is I've got my list of students, my roster of students that are in my biology class. So if I'm going to enter grades or attendance for a particular student, I'm going to click on Jessica Johnson in this case. Here's where I would take the attendance by class. Now, but if I come over here now to the Select Screens drop-down, I'm going to now have an option for special education. Okay? So by clicking on the special education link, any special education documentation that exists for Jessica or my students will be able to be viewed here. And you'll notice here at the top we've got our little logo, Special Ed Powered by TyNet. Now here's where I always like to mention security, because security is very important. Who can access what, who should have access to what, needs to make sure that it's following FERPA and HIPAA guidelines. So your security in TyNet is always going to be managed in TyNet as opposed to being managed in PowerSchool. So those two things will be separate. And what security really means being managed in TyNet is you have the ability to decide who sees what, who can edit what, who can view what. So if you just want the teacher, the gen ed teacher, to have access to the IEP, that's the only document they'll have access to. We even can take it a step further. If you only want them to have access to a couple of pages within the IEP, and you want them to be able to view one page but edit the other page, we can get security down to that level of granularity. And we see this kind of run the spectrum in terms of what clients do and what folks can access. But it is important to note that you decide that. We teach you that up front as part of our administrative training, and you really manage the security from that level on who can see what. So if existing documentation is here and I've got the ability based on my security privileges to view it, I can access it by simply clicking on the link. Also, if I wanted to create something right here from PowerTeacher, I've got my list of documents. Now, for demonstration purposes this morning, this is just a generic list of documents. It does not reflect our Pennsylvania model. I'm going to move us into that in just 1 second so you can at least get a flavor for what that looks like. So this is one way. If I'm a gen ed teacher, this may be the only screen I ever access because, again, I don't need to be in a special education system all the time. But if I am someone that needs to be in there every time because I need to be managing my reports, I need to see if I've gotten any messages, so on and so forth, I can come over here and slide out my application tray, and now I have a link for Special Education Home. And so what that's going to do is it's basically going to open the TyNet homepage. But you'll notice that this is our TyNet homepage, but I've never actually left PowerTeacher. Still in PowerTeacher, it's just opened in a new window. Again, over here on the left, you're going to see the icon for PowerSchool Special Ed Powered by TyNet, and this is kind of what that home page looks like. Again, someone that's in the system every day managing their student, managing their caseloads. Now, I'm going to do a little hat trick here, and I hope everybody can follow along. Again, this is our generic demo site that opened for me, but I want to take us over into our Pennsylvania model. And you'll see over here that it says Pennsylvania. The only difference you're going to notice here is the icon. Otherwise, the list looks pretty much the same. So we don't have a lot of time, but I do want to just kind of give you a brief overview of some of the functionality and what that looks like. Whenever you're searching for students in TyNet, it's always going to be done in a very consistent manner throughout the application. Consistency in terms of navigation and user friendliness is extremely important, especially when you're implementing a change, right, for folks. So we need to make sure that once you do something once, you're going to see that same method used again and again. So we use these little quick search forms, sort of like a Google search. The more information I put in here, the narrower, I should say, my results will be. But if I just want to search for every student who has a last name starting with the letter S, and I click search, I'm going to see all of my students that have a last name that starts with S. And this is just some basic information you're seeing, sort of a bird's eye view, but each user has the ability to customize their columns. And remember, all of this information is what's coming in from PowerSchool. So because a student can start the special education process at any time, it can be referred at any time, you're always going to have access to all of that information. To take us back home, I'm simply going to click the home page. We do have a curriculum completely aligned within the application. And you'll see here we've got your state standards, your Common Core, all of those things, your curriculums are going to be already loaded and aligned into the system. This becomes particularly important and useful when we get to the goal and objective page of the IEP, because folks can actually use the curriculum as a reference as they're creating goals and objectives. So this is sort of the place where it's stored, but again, it's accessible right from the page when you're creating goals and objectives. We do have a communication system. It's very obviously important to be collaborating and communicating with folks. It's extremely intuitive. If I've identified 6 people to attend a meeting, TyNet is going to assume all 6 people should get a copy of that invitation, and just list their names. You simply click them, and everybody's going to get a copy of that invitation. It'll land on your home page. Here, as you see here, I have a message, but it can also be forwarded to my school email address as well. I did mention that we do all of your special ed state reporting out of TINET. Your general education submission reporting would still be coming out of PowerSchool, but we have, in addition to our state's reporting, let me click on this really quick. Just going to open up this, expand these categories. In addition to, oops, see, it switched over again too. I'm sorry, I apologize. This happened last time. Let me close this out. It switched over to the, it switched over to my generic website. So bear with me very quickly while I get back into our Pennsylvania model. Just for the little glitches we were talking about before you all joined, but I promise this won't take more than a second. This is the screen. We'll use this as a teachable moment. If, we often get this question, what if PowerSchool goes down that day? It's okay. If PowerSchool goes down that day, you'll always still have access to the TINET application via the login screen that you just saw. Okay, so this still looks the same, and that is why the curriculum looked different. So I was wondering why that looked a little bit different. Here are all our curriculums that have been loaded into the system for Pennsylvania that you have access to, again, on the Goals and Objectives page. Again, let's go over quickly to reporting, and I will expand this list. And now you're going to see, again, we've got Penn data, we've got Penn report, we've got PIMS all coming out of the system. We have diagnostic reports that will help you to identify if there's an issue in a student's data and correct that with the snapshot and the end-of-year snapshot. We've got workflow compliance reports. We call them stoplight reports. Every user is going to be able to log in and see which students have an annual review coming up, which students have a reevaluation coming up. And they're going to be color-coded. So as soon as a student has an annual review coming up within the next 60 days, that student will be highlighted in green. When it hits 30 days, yellow, and when it hits just about 5 days out of compliance, it'll turn red to indicate, hey, we really got to start working on that student. So not only do your case managers and your end users have ability to view those reports on their own, as an administrator, you'll have that as well. So you can look at the analysis of caseloads by teachers and see those same sort of color-coded reports that will indicate, what's going on by case manager, by location, whatever the case may be. Our service capture module, it is separate from special ed, but that is, in Pennsylvania, it happens to be very, very straightforward and simple. If your school district is billing for Medicaid, while we don't do the billing ourselves, we do capture all of the services you need to bill Medicaid, and then we export that data in the format that you're using to submit to the state or the format that you're using to work with a third-party biller, and that's how that's submitted. So we capture the data. And if you're not billing for Medicaid, in some cases it's, money on the table, so you may want to think about that. In terms of help, of course, we've got tons of help guides, we've got videos, we do monthly webinars to highlight specific features of the system that everybody's invited to join and ask questions. So that's our kind of tap navigation bar. Now down here I've got my list of students here. I've got my, my kind of caseload of students, if you will. And let me scroll down a little bit more. Oops, all my kids that are out of compliance, but this gives you an idea of what that report we were talking about just a second ago. So these would also be highlighted in green and yellow based on when their, in this case, reevaluation was up. In terms of the students that I'm working with, I've got all students here, but I also can create little subgroups very easily. If I'm doing a math group, those are the 3 that are in there. I'm going to take us into a particular student now. Let's go into Susan Ackerman. And what I clicked on that looked like a little filing cabinet was her profile. And so you can see now we've got our little tabs up here at the top. It says Profile. We have Documents for the student, and we have Events. And our caseload kind of follows us along. So if we need to switch students at any point, it's going to follow us along in the process. Now, as you'll notice, this says Demographics and Enrollment and Contact Information. So all of the information that you're seeing here is coming from PowerSchool. So again, if there is a change in address, if there's a change in a phone number, whether it's from a staff perspective, a class perspective, or a student perspective, it's going to happen in almost real time here. A quick little navigation tip, anytime you see a little arrow, it means it's a flyout menu. It means there's other areas of information. Again, if you're troubleshooting a particular student's data based on our diagnostic reports, you can go right to that student and work on it right from these screens. I'm going to move us over quickly into documents now so you can get a flavor for what that looks like. Here is, again, documents. This screen should look pretty familiar to you because it looks a lot like this screen. So this is that user interface integration I was talking about. So whether I've created documents here or I've created documents here, those screens are always going to be consistent. And I think if I could say the biggest trend that I've seen in special ed over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been that everyone really ideally would like to move to one system so that you're not doing repetitive data entry that will end up having human error in almost all cases, unfortunately, so that you've got consistent information in both systems. And so the big push, the big trend has been to work in an integrated system where everything exists in one database. So if you have some documents that have been added, they are going to be able to be shown here. I'm going to click our little Create New Document drop-down. Now this reflects our Pennsylvania state model. It does include gifted, so we've got there and there as well. If you've got file-based documents that you want to attach, like for instance, I've attached a hearing test for this student, I can attach any file-based documents right from here. Or if you're moving from another system over to TyNet and you want all of your last 3 years, let's say, of worth of IEPs imported into the system so they're available here in PDF format, you can bring all of those into the system as well. And they'll be available here, so if you change systems, you don't have to go into a filing cabinet to pull a PDF version of or I should say a paper version of a document. It's accessible right here as a reference. So anything that exists is going to be here. And as the years roll on, these can kind of roll up, but you'll always have access to your archived documentation. It's not going anywhere. I've got a draft IEP here. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly open it so you can take a look and see what that looks like. This is what the draft IEP is going to look like in print mode, but if we're ready to enter information into it, we're going to click the little Edit This Section button. And now you're going to see that we can go ahead and edit information. So let me just show you what happens here. This is a completed field, but if it's not completed and it's highlighted as in pink because it's in accordance to meet the guidelines of compliance, that means that by the end of the time when we finish this IEP, we will have had to put a date in here, okay? And we've got these little pink or required fields throughout the system. When we're finished completing that particular page, we would go ahead and open. Now see, there you go. Now there's a perfect example of a guided action. It's telling me that, hey, the IEP team meeting date can't be prior to today's date. So I'm not going to be accidentally, and most people would never be doing this on purpose, but accidents happen. Human nature, human error. So I've got to make sure that the IEP meeting date can't be prior to today's date. So these little talking heads, as we call them, and you'll see the little things say guidance, those are the types of guidance areas we have throughout the system that are going to catch those types of things. If I go over to just one more thing, transition planning, let's say. Again, more pink boxes, more things that we're going to have to go ahead and complete. As you complete one section in the IEP, and remember our little flyout menu that we saw in the profile, again, consistent navigation. As you complete it, it's going to turn from bold print to regular with a little check mark indicating it's been completed. We can have several people working in the same document at the same time. We do have safeguards in place to make sure that they are not overwriting each other. And basically what happens is one person is locked out of the system. I'm sorry, one person's locked out of the page while another person is completing it. Progress reports come right out of the system. All your goals and objectives will be auto-populated into your progress report. We provide an IEP snapshot, which can be great for your gen ed teachers because it gives you just a snapshot of everything that's happened so they can quickly see the services the students has, modifications, accommodations, those kinds of things. Typical things here in terms of setting your document, printing your document, and that kind of thing. I want to be mindful of our time, and I think that this was really meant to sort of give you a flavor of what TyNet can do and its integration with PowerSchool, what that means. We have about 3 minutes to the top of the hour, and I do also want to just offer that I'm happy to do a deeper dive, sort of a webinar for anyone that's interested. And what we typically do is we spend a little bit more time in the profile, a little more time in reporting. We really walk through the entire IEP, going all the way to the process of finalizing it, so you can see how that process works. So I'm going to go ahead and stop in case there are any questions. We're kind of at a stopping point in terms of a high-level overview of the system.
All right. This is Linda again. Thank you, Renee, for providing us with this fantastic demo and this great product information. If anyone has questions for Renee, let me click here. Okay, I'm just monitoring. Okay, if anyone has questions, please enter it into the questions box on your panel there, your pane. You should be able to type right in there and then click enter, and it should be sent to us to view. We'll wait a few minutes. Oh, okay. So there's a question being asked for the pricing per student model. And I believe that that's probably a conversation that Renee can have with you to get your specific information and have that conversation with you offline. Renee, you can speak to that, and if you'd like, you could also give your contact information again.
Let me put that up on the screen while we do that. Yes, in terms of let me put that up there. In terms of pricing, it is pricing comes through Pearson, and actually you're going to hear from Tim Moore, who's the Pearson representative after me. Pricing will come through Pearson. I can tell you it's on a per student basis with a certain amount to start things up, and other setup fees and to get everything integrated. But if you're interested, we'll work with you on your total student count. We'll work with you to see what kind of legacy data that you want to bring into the system. In terms of doing state reporting and those kinds of things, and then we can provide you a price quote, within a day or two. And when I say we, I really mean Pearson.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Renee? Like I said, enter them into the questions box there on the right. Okay. We're coming up on, one more. Let me expand the box here to see. Okay. So the question, Renee, is, does the program incorporate data collection, process monitoring, and progress reporting? So does the program incorporate data collection, progress monitoring, and progress
All three of those
reporting?
Things.
Okay.
All three of those things, yes.
Very good.
And in fact, if you're utilizing, just progress report made me think of this, and I was going to mention it. If you're utilizing the parent portal of PowerSchool, within a couple months now, that's our next big feature that we're releasing, which is you'll be able to actually do your progress reporting out of TiNet, and that parent portal will be utilized for folks that are trying to go paperless and where that's working.
Very good. Okay, another question came in. Can documents be scanned and uploaded into the student file?
Absolutely. That's what that little file-based document, that option that was at the very bottom of that drop-down list, that is exactly how you do that. Right here at the very bottom, there's something called file-based document, which means you can scan that in, and it'll attach right to the student's record. I have a hearing test here that I can actually open up that I've created that looks like that. It's just a little demo here, but I've scanned that, basically scanned that into the system.
Fantastic. So I imagine along with that there may be some system requirements that need to be expanded and that sort of thing, but again, that could all be drilled out with another conversation.
Yes, we've got our compatibility here, but generally speaking, if you're using PowerSchool, whether you're hosting or being self-hosted, you're going to be compatible with this, and this is just some of our latest compatibility in terms of, your browsers to use. It's also available, by the way, not that I can imagine too many people writing an IEP on an iPhone, but an iPad is a different story. It is compatible with iPad, iPhone, and your Android as well.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Well, I very much appreciate the opportunity, Linda. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'll come back anytime, so you let me know.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. It's been a pleasure having you, and we like your product very much. So
Great.
again, if there's interest, please feel free to contact Renee directly, Renee Pardo at maximus.com.
You got it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And for everyone still on the call, this session is in the process of being recorded. It was recorded from the beginning. So that will be available in the near future at ps-solutions.org. We'll post it there along with any other information that we have, the PowerPoints, etc., from today's presentations. So next we have Timothy Moore, Pearson Platform Specialist for the Northeast Marketing Team, who will speak to the second topic on our agenda, which is PowerSchool version 8.0 functionality. And as you all know, we're all very interested in knowing new functionality and discussing what has been released recently. And, we live in times of change, so always good to try to keep abreast of all that. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. Good morning, Linda. Good morning to all.
Okay, now you should, yes, we are now seeing your screen, so very good.
Very good. Okay. Do you see the full screen? That's a good thing.
Yeah, I had to make mine broader, but now I can see the full screen. Yeah.
Okay, great.
You looks like you're in Bath, England, right?
Oh, perfect. What? You put that right first guess?
Oh, no.
Wonderful. That was perfect.
What do I win?
I have a special gift for you.
I win a virtual gift, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, you do. You do indeed.
Okay.
Well, Renee, I'd certainly like to thank Renee for her presentation. And Renee and I are working together with the PowerSchool piece to get everybody who are interested in special education within PowerSchool, get them all set up and ready to go. As you can see, it was a really nice presentation, but more importantly, being an old principal myself, I really enjoy looking at the documents. I really like the stoplight reports, the red, green, and yellow, because when you have those team meetings, there's always an issue about compliance. And so having that data right there is, I think, really important and very helpful for us. Today, I'm going to talk about 8.2. Now, I have provided, and Linda has provided, you all with a link to this PowerPoint, which is actually, 140-some slides that I thought would be just a little long this morning. But I provided that up at Dropbox, and so Linda, it is shared, and so Linda has provided that link for you to go get it and take a look. And it includes from 8.0 all the way to 8.2, but I wanted to focus on 8.2 because these are the things that are moving right now and where PowerSchool is headed. The inclusion of TyNet into PowerSchool is just one of the many enhancements that are coming down the pike, and all of this, believe it or not, was a direct result back in when we did the 7.0 release, where we recoded PowerSchool to Java. All of that coding, all of those 2 years of effort are now paying off and getting us more feature functionality, more inclusion of other products very, very rapidly. So I'd like to go over some things here with you with respect to 8.2. And the first thing I'm going to do, though, I'm going to see if I can, and you're going to help me here. I'm going to toggle over to my Firefox browser. Linda, can you see my Firefox screen? My Apple Grove? Hello?
Yes. Yep. We can see your Apple Grove screen.
Okay, good.
Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry about that.
It scared me there for a minute. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. Because I wanted to show everybody this. And this is our sign-in screen. And if you recall in the past, we had a What's New piece down here, as you can see. And I'm going to click on Read More. And so in the new PowerSchool releases in this new format, you will see that when you click on what's new here, you will see what's happening in this particular version. And so this is what's in 8.2. However, we oftentimes have a lot of staff changes, and more importantly, you oftentimes could possibly skip a version release, and so you may miss some of the things that were added in the past. And so if you're not familiar with this, there's a click here. Now let me click on that. And this now will give you more detailed information about what's in 8.2. So you can see all of that detailed information here. So you don't have to necessarily go to PowerSource to get it. It's all listed right here. But then more importantly, you'll notice the tabs across the top. So we're actually keeping track of what was new in 7.0, 7.1, all the way across. And so this is going to continue for a while anyway, back to 7. And so you can go back and take a look at what were the new changes that occurred. Did I miss anything? Is there something out there that maybe I need to turn on or look up and get some help on? So I think that's very important for you to look at. I'm going to go back to my presentation screen, and let's take a look at what's in 8.2. In 8.2, one of the things that we've added is teacher recommendations en masse. So these are comments that are coming through PowerSource, and let me reiterate the importance of PowerSource. It's really very, very important for the users, for all of you, to take advantage of going into PowerSource and in the suggestions, the enhancements area. If there's something that you have in mind, if there's something that the group has in mind, maybe your user group, please go ahead and put that information in there. The more votes that a recommendation gets and receives, then it moves it further up the list. This happens to be one of them. So the teacher recommendation page had to do with going in and making recommendations for students, but not just one at a time. We'll take a look at that. Course request screens. When you're working with the course request screens, you want to be able to, maybe as for the counselors, provide them on the admin side, but not have them on the student, the public side. So that's in here. We also have some function links that have been added to the student list page in Power Scheduler, and of course some course link report improvements, and some scheduled course enrollment improvements. So let's go take a look at the differences. So this is now under teacher recommendations. So I'm in Power Teacher, and I've pulled up my recommendations menu item on the left-hand side. And I have some students already in here. This is a screenshot that I took. And so what I can actually do is to go back in, oops, back up here. If I create recommendations, instead of having to go through each child, what I can do is I can pick the course or courses. So for instance, maybe I have 3 sections of Algebra 1. And so those 3 sections in general, I would be recommending, again, depending on your curriculum scope and sequence, might be going to Geometry or Algebra 2. And so I've got, let's say, 60 students, and I need to recommend them for, let's say, geometry. I can go in, and when I create my recommendations, I can pick the 3 sections of Algebra 1, and it will show me all of those students. I can then pick and choose which students to include or exclude in my recommendation. And then I can go ahead and pick the course, the next course that is going to be recommended for them. And very similar to what we have when we're looking at the course table for the school, when you begin typing in the course number or name, it begins to filter that for you. It's going to do that also for the teachers, so that they don't have to hunt through the entire list of the course catalog. There's even filters on that they could filter to, let's say, the math department. If I was the math teacher recommending algebra, then maybe I can type in ALG because it's going to bring up Algebra 1, Algebra 2, maybe Algebra 3, and I can go ahead and do that. As you'll notice in my comments area, I've gone in and I've typed in the word recommended, but there's an anecdotal capability here to go ahead and indicate in math for those students, kind of like what we do in the Power Teacher Gradebook when we put a comment, a mass comment in for a group of students. But here again, you can pick an individual student, and maybe that student has been recommended for maybe general math too. So that's the teacher recommendation area. So it's a nice, clean way to help teachers save time. And if you think about the number of students that teachers have, the number of click savings is in the hundreds. So this is certainly a teacher recommendation change that I think is well received. In the course request screen option, this has the change that I was talking about before. And so you remember when you went into the grade, the screen setups, this is in Power Scheduler, if you can see at my breadcrumbs at the top. So under the screens area, normally it would say preview student request, the registration screen. Now you have a second option. You have the admin portal and you have the student parent portal. So for instance, if you decide that for a particular grade level, you don't really need them to go in and do course selections online, maybe let's say for 9th grade or something like that, then you can go ahead and turn off the Power School student and parent portal and turn on the admin portal. And that gives the counselor the ability to bring that student up and do the course selections, handily from the screens, and makes it a lot easier for the counselor to get the course selections in with working with the students. In the Power Scheduler student options, one of the things that we added in here has to do with, if you're familiar with this page, this is where I've gone in to look for students. So I'm in Power Scheduler, and I'm down under students. And then in general, I pick a grade level, or I pick an alpha list, or type in a student's name. In this particular case, I grabbed up the A students, which were 17. But at this point in time, that's great. I have them over here, and I can look at preferences, of course. Again, this is nothing changed on that. But what did change is this functions piece. So if you're familiar with the functions capability, we now have that right here so that you can take these 17 students and not only look at their, their scheduling setup and their course requests and things like that, but now maybe you want to take these 17 and in mass enroll them into a class, or you want to do something else like that. So the functions is right here. Is that a big change? No, it's not a big change, but it does save time whenever you're going to do some other work that you have to go back and go to the functions page to do that. There's been some Power Scheduler student options here, some improvements. in the list, and by the way, yes, it's not your vision. It is the clarity of this screen. I took the opportunity to do some screen captures from the monthly webcast that we have for upcoming information, and so that's why these are kind of copies of copies, if you wish. However, in the this is a courses report, so over down on the left-hand side we have our course numbers and our course name, but then across the top what we've added to this list is the number of students scheduled, what team, if anything, they're on, the section type, valid start periods, target number of sections, etc., that are actually listed in there. And this is a clearer picture of that report, as you can see. And so the idea here is to provide the scheduler with a lot more information in one place about the particular courses that you're working with in the scheduling season. As you can see here, the department, whether or not that class is being scheduled, how many sections we're going to have, how often does it meet, how many periods per meeting, per cycle, what term it's being loaded into, etc. The number of sections offered. So all of those, and then the ranking here. So it gives you a nice layout of that information so that you can, in one place, get a lot of information for your scheduling routines. There's also a scheduled course enrollment report. So this goes back to the scheduled course enrollment. So what we've done is modified the report a little bit and gone in, and as you can see here, the left-hand side is our course name and number. Seats available, right? But what we've done is we've added in the requests. So not only primary but alternates, how many seats are vacant, and the unfulfilled primary requests, etc. So in other words, give you an idea of how these sections are filling and what you're still left over that you need to accommodate. Just FYI, you may question what the very first line, it says minus 61. So what that's doing, rather than change things up, you've probably seen this before in the report, this has to do with the fact that there were 61 students here who they didn't request the A+ certification class. In other words, they didn't ask for it. They didn't course select it. However, what we did do is we took 61 kids and we put them into that class. So that's why there's a negative 61. There's actually 61 students in there that didn't request a class. So this particular report is going to change. It's going to morph some more. And by the way, the previous report will change also. And the way it's going to change is based on your feedback. So the kinds of things that you need to be able to see on these reports, please go ahead and make those comments. By the way, I'll also mention, you notice these headers like frequencies and numbers of sections offered, things like that. Those are sortable. Remember, we've changed when we got into 8, every column in a table now is sortable. And again, that's part of the changeover into the new coding system in PowerSchool. Some other things about this next page, as we were looking at, you can drill into these requests. These are all hot links, as you can see, and so that you can drill into those. But please, make sure that you go in and take a look at these reports when you get to 8.2 and go ahead and make comments. So I've drilled into the seats filled area, and so it brought up a list showing that information. Notice it's also multiple tabbed across, so you don't have to close the screen and go back to the primary requests or alternate requests. They're right here through tabs so that you can do that. And notice right over here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, there's the functions menu. So for this group of students, maybe what's true is we need to change some course selections for them, and so we can have access to the functions menu right here. The There's some other enhancements in 8.2, one of which is teacher attendance submission status, and the public portal, the student and parent portal. So I'll show you those few changes that are here as we go through. So this screen should be familiar to most. This is the teacher attendance submission status, and you know it has the pink and green and yellow indicators on the screen. But one of the problems that occurred had to do with, well, let's say lunch. If you were like me as a principal, I had lunch in my teacher schedules because it made it easier for the scheduling engine to load courses correctly into the teacher's workflow. But lunch didn't have any attendance taken, and so it ended up as a class, no students in it, and I would never take attendance in it anyway, but it prevented me from turning green, and I would have to click on a teacher's name to see which classes were still out. Well, that was nice, but it didn't really help me as an attendance clerk. So now you can go up here and say show sections excluded from attendance, and if you say no, then it won't reveal those, and it'll only show status for those classes where the attendance is being taken. And so makes it nice and easier, much easier for the attendance clerks. The parent portal student schedule has to do with whether or not you want to include the student matrix and the default term. The student matrix is up to you, but now it provides that as an option on the parent page and student page. So in other words, here shows, as you can see down here, my schedule, and it'll show that the weekly view for the student schedule. There's also a matrix view. If you're familiar with the matrix view, that's the one that is more condensed in brighter colors and oftentimes shows, well, it'll show you that maybe you have two classes at the same time if you're an aide and you're also doing some work in there. So those are some changes that have been added to 8.2 for the core product. Now these next pieces, real quickly as I go through these are API enhancements. And I know most of you don't get too excited about API enhancements. However, all of the work that Renee was talking about today with PowerSchool and making changes over in PowerSchool and having them almost immediately reflected in the TiNet special ed application, all of that is due to the API and the API enhancements. And so you can see here that some changes that we're working on. This is really designed to help you as PowerSchool administrators really take a look at what you want to give people access to or know what some of the applications that are added to PowerSchool are looking at. So I'm going to real quickly go through here. There is in the system settings now, there is a plugin management configuration. So that's a new item in here. And once you select that, it's going to show you all of the different API plugins that are attached to your PowerSchool instance. And so you can go ahead and see them. I don't have any TiNet in here, but here's one, number 7 down here, InfoSnap. So you can see that information. There's not only the ability to enable and disable. You notice it's keeping track of version numbers so that in case there is an issue, maybe with InfoSnap, let's say, you can quickly find out, well, you're on version 1, and maybe there's been an update for that. The other part, if I come over here on the right-hand side, you'll notice the resource report. If you click that, it will print out all of the installed plugins for you. So you can print that out. You can actually, there's more detail to this particular page. So you can print it out, put it in your binder as you have as your PowerSchool administrator. as you drill down into a particular one, and let's pretend this is InfoSnap, you'll notice that what we're providing you is the ability to see what schema extensions this particular plugin is looking at, what data access requests, what queries they're using. There's so much information here that it's really quite overwhelming, but it gives you all of the information so that we're not hiding anything about what pieces of data these API calls or these partners are looking at in your system. Here again, print resource details. You can print out all the gory details about that. One of the things might be that you look at the resource detail report and see that a particular party, a project, is looking and requesting item information on, let's say, free and reduced lunch. And you, for your district, say, you know what, I don't want them to have that information. Then you can go ahead and contact, you'll know that they're requesting that. You could contact that vendor and say, you know, I really don't want you looking at that. Can you change that? Can you make a modification for us? Because that's not okay. And if we don't do that, we're going to have to terminate our contract with that particular provider. The plugin management piece, there is a plugin resources report right here. So you can come in here and get that report too that we were just looking and talking about. And that's 8.2. As I mentioned before, that's, goodness, that's almost a half an hour, and that's just in 8.2. I've provided that link for Linda, and she can share with you, and that will give you access to the Dropbox complete file, and you can go ahead and take that, and depending on where you are in version 8, go ahead and take a look at that information that's provided. If you have any questions, related to what you've seen today, and just like I'm going to come back to my first page, this is my email address. You can certainly send me an email and ask some questions. I'd be more than happy to work with you individually, but that's what our consortium is about. That's what the PowerSchool group is about for the intermediate units, and so if you'd like to set something up with them and have maybe somebody from product development come in via WebEx, we'd be happy to do that too. And so that's the end of that one, Linda. Are there any questions from the group? There's Linda showing the link there.
You know what, Tim? I'm sorry. I think I was muted myself. So I was talking on and on. But thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation and disclosed a lot of the great features of 8.2.
Yeah, and let me just make a final comment that there are some additional slides, but due to our time requirements, I decided not to show them. But a couple things that are coming and should be coming for fall. We don't have firm dates for them because of the way our development team works. We're very agile in our development. But first of all, you probably know we're working on the web-based new Power Teacher Gradebook, and it's not just an HTML5 write of the gradebook. There's major changes in the gradebook coming, so that's one thing that's coming, and there'll be a release, maybe a small release of it for back to school. Another piece that you'll see though coming quite quickly, and that's called quick data views. Quick data views are going to be set up so that school districts can go ahead and create screens, very, very much like dashboards, but these are interactive and very easy to do. Pick and choose fields that you want to display, etc. And we'll have more information on that in the coming months.
Okay, very good. Yeah, the link to your presentation I put into the chat box, and it was also placed in the questions and answers area. So again, if you want to see the questions and the responses, a way to make that window larger is to click the icon next to the X on the right, and that icon will undock the pane to the control panel, and it will enlarge it so that you can then see the question, who's asked the question, and then the answers that are being incorporated. So that's where the link is, and we do have a couple of questions in here, Tim.
Okay.
So the first question is there a way to delete recommendations en masse, either for the teacher or for the admin?
That's a great question. I don't believe there is just yet. That was brought up during the presentation that I kind of stole those screenshots from, and the answer was not yet, but that's being worked on. They wanted to get the ability to make them first.
Okay. All right. And then another question is there a way to delete recommendations? Oh, okay, so that's it. That was the same. I'm sorry. Same picture, same question. And any others out there? Enter them into the questions box, and we'll address them.
For those of you, while we're waiting, just a comment about the Agile development, the way PowerSchool is being developed at this point, is that there are, when the roadmap is laid out, that roadmap is set up with milestones, if you wish, waypoints, and then those chunks are worked on. And so the idea is to initially build, especially in big projects, to build the groundwork. And that's why you'll find that often when a new feature function is released, you'll say, oh, gee, this doesn't do anything. And oftentimes that's the case. It may do one or two things. But the work that's been done is to build a solid, reproducible process and set of functions, import, exports, reporting, everything else underneath it so that it fits correctly into the schema, so that we don't have these pieces here and there that are stuck on like stickies onto a screen, that they actually are integrated well into the product.
Very good. Well, I don't see any other questions coming into the box. Tim gave his information, his email, tim.moore@pearson.org, right? It was .org or com? Com, okay.
Yep.
If anyone has a question for Tim, please feel free to email him or email one of us at the PowerSchool Solutions Consortium. And that email is at the bottom of the screen there, support@pssolutions.org. So thank you very much, Tim. That was a great overview. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're quite welcome, and have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have Chris Wilkinson, Pearson's Senior Product Manager, Regulatory Compliance, presenting the ever-popular state reporting update. And the state of PA tends to keep Chris quite busy with, and her team quite busy with updates and changes and new things all the time. So we all like to have you here, Chris, to explain to us how those requirements have been incorporated into PowerSchool and how we can use the system. So welcome aboard and good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. So
okay, good.
Very good. We got the whole, and that's what happened, right? Your headset was enabled once we gave you the permissions, right?
Good. Yeah.
Okay.
And so hopefully you're seeing my PowerPoint.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
The Pennsylvania PowerSchool Roadmap is
yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
So basically today, hello everyone. I think many of you have seen me already, so I don't have a picture of myself like Tim did. My apologies for that, but I've been there in Pennsylvania and have been to some of your meetings, and hopefully this year I'll get to come again. Anyway, so what I wanted to do today, and as many of you know, we have a statewide call every month that is on the fourth Wednesday of each month. So you should be getting tech notes for that. I also have started to post that out on PowerSource as a reminder when that meeting is. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about today are things that we talk about during that meeting, that conference call that we have each month. So what I wanted to talk about right now is what we're trying to accomplish for 2015. Some of the items, obviously, we're trying to get done before the summer end of submission time frame. It's been an interesting year so far, as far as state reporting goes, simply because of all of the changes to the calendar, and also because of so many required updates, both new reports and just changes to a lot of the reports. And actually just went through the calendar last week, and there are over 20, I think there's 22 reports that now can be submitted during collection 6, which is a new thing for our team. We usually design the work that we do. We plan the work that we do based on when your submission windows are. Well, having collection 6 open all year long has kind of changed a lot of that and makes it so we have to hurry and try to get the updates to all of the reports, those 22 reports, done, knowing that many of you might be submitting that data now. For the most part, I did call PIMS because on the calendar, I don't know if some of you have noticed, but there's not really a date as to when Collection 6 closes. And for the most part, everything is July 31st in Collection 6. So getting used to the new calendar and submission windows and all of that has been quite the challenge for us this year, but I think we're staying on top to the best of our ability of all of these changes. So as you can see on my screen now, when I try to put this in slide view, which I did like about 20 minutes ago, I don't know what happens, but I have 3 screens that I work off of, and basically when I take PowerPoint and put it into slideshow view, it brings down everything. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to try doing it when I'm not part of a presentation to see what's going on. But anyway, that's why you see the slides over there on the left-hand side. I'm not just showing the whole screen like I'd like to. But anyway, so what we're doing is we're going to continue to work on the state reporting updates for PIMS. That would be the staff student subtest, which we just released the fields, the new fields that report requires. We just released those last Friday on the 30th, and I reviewed those on the statewide call, where those fields are, what needs to be done, and if we have time today and people want me to show that, I can go through that. I know everyone's really concerned about this report. The report, we have it planned to release on the 13th of February. And I know that your submission window is, coming up and that it closes soon, and that many of you are going to be attending the data quality, the conferences, the 2 conferences that you're having in the next 2 months. So we're trying to get this out there as quickly as possible. So the fields are out there. You're more than welcome to start doing your data entry. And the report, like I've mentioned here, we're planning to release that on the 13th. We're currently working on the Location Facts School Safety Report. This report is in PowerSchool right now, but it's looking at log data, not incident management data. And as many of you know, we announced at the beginning of this year that we were supporting incident management this year. This is the 2nd year that it's been a part of PowerSchool, and this was one last report that we needed to write to look at the incident management data. we basically said that we weren't going to support data, the log entry, discipline reports, and log entry data. However, I'm sure there are some of you that have figured out that the state didn't really make any changes to those reports, and so those reports are still in PowerSchool, still looking at the log data, and all of the incident management reports, your reports that are looking at incident management data are also in PowerSchool. This was one last report that we needed to rewrite and have look at incident management data. It's in the process of being rewritten right now. In fact, I was just talking to the developer yesterday that's working on this report. I don't think that it will get released by February 13th, but it will be soon after. Okay? The other reports that I have listed here on the page, we have not started working on. We know that we need to work on them and hopefully try to get them done before the July 31st submission deadline. There's quite a few. That would be the District Fact LEP, the District Fact School Choice SES Extract, the Location Fact School Choice, the Special Education Act 16, and the Special Education Exit Report. Now, the very last one, the Special Education Exit Report, I came up with that name because if you look on the calendar, that's how they refer to it. It's the same report as your special education report that you have right now for December 1, but the data is actually extracted differently, and it includes all the students that have also exited special education. So there was a KB article written a couple years ago on how to get this data out using the report that we have in PowerSchool right now. And at first we didn't know if the state was always going to require this report to be, the data to be extracted in that manner, but now that we're going on, I think, the second or third year that they're asking for the data to be this way, we're actually going to do a whole new report that will extract the correct students, and we're going to refer to it as the Special Education Exit Report. The other one will be called the Special Education December 1. So that will, that's pretty much covers, which is a lot. There's a lot of reports that needed to be written. Hopefully we'll be able to get these all done. We do have extra resources that have been added to our team to help accommodate this. So hopefully we'll be able to meet our goals. So I've been working with the focus group, and we've kind of ranked these. I don't have them listed in their importance. Obviously, I think the special education is, probably the most important. The exit report, we get a lot of requests on that, and also the Special Education Act 16. So hopefully we'll be able to get those all done by the end of the year. That's my goal. Let me go to the next slide here. The other things that we're working on is the early warning system dashboard. There have been some requests by some school districts in Pennsylvania that are using PowerSchool. They've contacted the entity that is managing the early warning system dashboard at the state level and have indicated that they would like to be a part of that. And so we have actually started working on this project, which is a very large project. The minimum number of reports that need to be run, there are 17 of them. Many of them have the same names as PIMS reports, but the data is slightly different for each of these. So we're having to write each report as, separate for the early warning system. We have been adding fields already for the early warning system. Probably you've seen those releases. There will be obviously a whole demonstration on the early warning system, all the fields, all the places that they are in PowerSchool, the setup that will be required. There'll be a separate manual for this early warning system dashboard. The reports will be on a separate tab in PowerSchool, the 17 reports. And we know that you're going to have to run these reports and upload them to the system probably 2 to 3 times a week. And so The state has actually provided a web services type of way to do that, and we are working on providing that as well so that you don't have to run each of the 17 reports separately. That will be kind of new functionality for PowerSchool. So that's all in the works for the early warning system, and I think that in the next couple of months, probably March, you will see the first of the reports and that new tab added to PowerSchool for the early warning system, for those of you who are interested in having that functionality. The next big project that we have been asked to complete will be the migration of the state custom fields. Our management, my manager, upper management, has asked that we, by the end of 2015, so by the end of December 2015, we have all of the state custom fields migrated to database extensions. And there'll be a lot of communication on this and how that's all going to work. Again, during those monthly meetings, I will be reviewing the migration process with everyone. There'll be tech notes, release notes, a lot of announcements. You'll need to be paying close attention to those tech notes when they come out. I've already highly recommended that you be on version 8.0 or higher for core PowerSchool. And this is a very big project. This will, is going to have a big impact. And so if you have the opportunity to attend those monthly meetings, I highly recommend that you do that so that you can get the latest and greatest on what's going on with this project. Some of the other requested reports that we have, and I noticed in the other special ed presentation, which is great, we've had a request to do Table 9A, which is pen data. We haven't ever done that in the past because we've always understood that we haven't really provided pen data reports because we felt like the state was eventually going to include that data in with the PEMS reports. But since that really hasn't happened, we've had some customers request that Table 9A pen data, that report, be provided in PowerSchool. Also, we've had recently the state announced that they would no longer be extracting the data from the data that you send via PEMS for the classroom diagnostic tools. They let all of the vendors know that they were no longer going to be doing those for reports for you to send to the classroom diagnostic vendor. So there is also a request for these 4 reports for those of you who need to extract that data out of PowerSchool, which would be the test session, teacher, student, and student group classroom diagnostic reports or data extracts. That is no longer going to be provided by the state. So we do have that on the roadmap. It's pretty lofty. I doubt that we'll get those done, but you never know. We might just zoom through some of those other reports that we feel are really important and be able to get to these by the end of 2015. My other slides are just, this slide here is just basically the most recent releases, what we've done. We released the new, as I mentioned earlier, staff-student subtests and new fields. The report is coming out on February 13th, which is the next planned release. CRDC Part 1 and 2 for school year data 13-14 will be released also on February 13th. There'll be some more early warning system fields that will be released, and we're constantly updating and trying to keep on top of any issues that have been reported. I know that in February there will be an update to the school enrollment template, the student template snapshot, and some other state reporting, other state reports that needed to be updated based on feedback from customers. Okay. This is just reminding you that releases are announced through a tech note, and releases are installed through an installer. Each release always contains all the previously released content. The way that you confirm that you have the latest report is to check the release version numbers, compare it with the release notes and on your report submission page, and also on the first page that you log in with PowerSchool, where the place where you log in, there's, if you mouse over there, you can see the version numbers for core and state reporting that you're on. So if you're ever wondering if you're on the most recent state reporting update, that's how you can check that. The best way to get your answers resolved or your issues resolved is by contacting support. I do work closely with the focus group, and when they do have an issue, they let me know, and then I work with support with those case numbers. So be sure that you contact support. I have to say that Pennsylvania is you're all very, very good about doing that. You even call support about new reports that you know need to be in PowerSchool, which is great. Also, you want to keep track of everything by checking PowerSource, the state reporting guides. We have a new guide. It's called the Data Dictionary. And also, there is a brand new guide for CRDC. It's over 300 pages. I just released that on the 30th. So be sure and take a look at that. It has a step-by-step of everything that you need to set up for the CRDC and the report input and output for those two reports. So that's pretty much it for my presentation. If we have time, I can take you into PowerSchool if some people would like to see some of the fields that we've added for that staff student subtest report. I can do that.
Chris, this is Linda. We're at 10:55, 10:54, and I think it would be beneficial for individuals to have a look into the actual database.
Okay.
I mean, we do have a couple of questions if you want to hear them, and then if you want to kind of steer to that area, that might be a nice way to segue in, and maybe not. So I'll read to you the first question.
Okay.
Will the location fact report for incidents be a new report? Will the old location fact that pulls from log entries still be available?
Yes, all of the location fact and all of your discipline reports will, I don't want to say the old ones, but the ones that are looking at the log table data will still be in PowerSchool. And the location fact, the one that we're working on right now, yes, that will be a new report. It will be written in SRP, and it will be looking at incident management data. So really quickly, let me show you what we did to meet the needs of the location fact and incident management data. So here in District Setup, we updated the script recently for incident management. So we updated the codes and the subcode setup. We had the need to update some of these codes for other purposes, but also for the location fact. We needed to add those codes to this area, which they had not been previously. Those codes had not been here. Also, there were some codes that were added for the early warning system. So if you look under here under behavior codes, you will see that we have this academic violation, and we also have this code of conduct violation. So for location fact, this is all we really needed to do was when you create an incident for a student, as long as you have an academic violation attached to that student, it will be counted in that aggregated report in the location fact report, as well as the code of conduct violation. If I open this up, you'll see this academic dishonesty subcode. That is for the early warning system. And then if I open up the code of conduct violation, you'll see bus conduct report, and school code of conduct violation and other, those three are also used for the early warning system. So we do have those added now, and if you run the script in PowerSchool, which is, and I'll show you where that is, if you run that, your incident management code and subcode configuration will be updated, and you will have these new codes and everything, all the changes added that we made to these codes and subcodes. Also, it has been recently reported to us that the current incident management reports, discipline reports, are pulling academic violation and code of conduct. We are aware of that issue, and we will update and resolve those reports in the March release. Okay, so that was just recently reported to us. So let's just go look at your system report page here really quickly. So in the past, all of your reports, you can see here, were written in the platform that's referred to as reporting engine. You're probably familiar with that terminology. As we rewrite reports, we find the need to rewrite a report, or we provide a new report, we write it in the SRP framework platform. And these reports that are listed here at the top that have these different kinds of icons in front of them, they are written in SRP. So you can see here where we have the discipline domain extracts referencing incident management tables. Those are all written in SRP. And then if you scroll down, you'll see where we still have the discipline domain extracts looking at the log table. We still have all your reports listed here. And then these two, location fact template and location fact detail, the location fact template is being rewritten right now. The detail one is next in line. And those will be under a new header, and it will say that they are looking at the incident management tables. Okay, and they'll be written in SRP. Right now, what was reported to us just recently is that all of these reports are pulling data that should only be included on the location fact. I just want you to know that we are aware of that issue and that we're working on it. So all of these reports will be updated to not do that, and only the data that is supposed to be extracted on the location fact will be on the location fact. Okay, I hope that answers everybody's questions about the discipline domain and incident management.
Right. There's another question in the box, Chris, that is from Laura, and I might need some more clarification, or maybe after you presented that, she doesn't need to ask the question any longer. Her question is stated as this: when you add things to incident management mid-year, you are causing us to go back and redo all of our previous entries. Mm-hmm. So I think the explanation you just give will clarify that there are reports still available from log entries and from incident management. Yeah. Laura, if you would like to clarify that question a little bit more, put something more in there and we'll be able to address it.
I think what she's talking about is that when we update the subcodes and codes, then it causes people to have to go back to the incidents they've created and maybe make adjustments to that. We're aware of that. We apologize for that. I'm not quite sure what to say about that, except that it's been a work in progress. Incident management is a complex functionality, and hopefully we're not going to have to update this script again for quite some time. But obviously, when if the state comes out with new requirements or changes, then we have to go back to to making changes to the codes and subcodes setup, which I know often causes you to have to go back in and address incidents that you've already created and make changes to those incidents.
Right, and that does appear to be the crux of the question. Yeah. Laura said we have already created our own behavior code of conduct codes for our use. Can we use your state codes in our existing entries? So I believe there's a mapping, right? So that you can map your your internal codes to a state code.
Right. So you can do that. Let me just show you here. When we go to this code and subcode setup, let's just go to action codes, for example. And we click down here, and we have S1 for none, S2 for detention. We can see here on my test server, I have all the state ones, but each individual district is more than welcome to add their own. For example, I've seen some that say superintendent's in-school suspension or whatever. If you open up this code right here, and you see right here this state detail report code, that is the code that our reporting is looking at. So if you create your own subcode here, as long as you map it to the state code, it's going to be used in the calculation of the report. So as long as you map it to a state detail report code, it will be, we'll look at that and we'll include it in the calculation of the report. So you're more than welcome to add your own local codes, and if you want them to be included in any of the reports that get sent to the state, then just make sure that you use the state detail report code that the state requires when you're adding those codes. Does that answer that question? We know that many of you on your academic violations and your code of conduct violations will have your own codes here. Just know that location fact doesn't really care about subcodes. It only cares about how many students in grade 1 had an academic violation. It's just an aggregate report. So we're just counting these. We're not really looking at your subcodes. But for your own information, you're more than welcome to add your own subcodes to these main codes.
Very good, Chris. Thanks. Laura responded that that was perfect, and she thanks you.
Okay. Okay. So I just wanted to show really quickly how you update how the script gets updated. When the release comes out, in the release notes, you'll be directed to go to the district setup, district information, and on this page there is a link that says Pennsylvania Discipline Codes and Subcode Status, and then right here you can click, and once you've done it, you don't need to do it again. So it should be in blue if you have not done it, and it basically just says load codes and subcodes. And once you do that, then when you come back here, this should not be blue. And you should not be able to just keep doing it over and over. So whenever there's an update, whenever we've made changes to those subcodes and codes, this is where we're going to do it. Have you do that. Okay?
Since you're on that screen, there was a question as to where is the CRDC report. So I see it there at the district level, and then I believe it also resides elsewhere. So if you want to speak to that.
Okay. So the data entry for the CRDC, there's several places, but data entry for CRDC, there are a bunch of new questions from the feds. So if we look under here, civil rights data collection, is on the district info page, and we made sure that you know that when you're filling out all of these questions, I call this a survey, that you're doing it for 1314. And because we know that there may have been some of you that used incident management in 1314 and some of you that used log entries, we are asking that you make an indication of where you want that data pulled from. I know there were some districts out there that primarily used incident management last year, and then there's a lot of you that use log entries. So you need to come here and make that indication so the CRDC will know where to extract the discipline data from. Okay? And then basically here are all the questions that you will notice the page has changed. The questions, some of the questions are different. Definitely the numbering is different. All this LEA 17-18, all of the numbering on the page is different. We have our really what we think is a cool function that is specific to your state where you mouse over a field. You can see the table and field name that is for that statement, basically, whatever that. We've added that to this page. You will notice that when you do that mouse over that some of these items might be in the pref table and some of them might actually be in a database extension table. I think pretty much everything here in district setup is still, on the district info page, is still in the prefs table. The rest of the information, the survey questions are for on each of your schools. So what you're going to want to do is go to schools and school info. You're going to want to click on your school, on each school. There'll be a link for CRDC. And I can tell you right now what's most important, and I did put this in the manual, and I did put this in the release notes as well. You want to make sure that you put an ID in here. If you do not have an ID in this field, data will not be extracted for this school. So this is a required field if you want data to be included in the CRDC for this school. And again, we just have the questions on the page. The numbering has changed. We have the layout of the page looks a little bit different than you remember from previously doing the CRDC. We also made a note that we listed 1314 on here, hopefully as a reminder that you're answering these questions and you're filling this page out for 1314, not the current school year. Okay?
And just to restate, is that in Friday's release or a future release? Or is this the way it looks presently?
This is the way it looks presently.
Okay.
We released the data entry quite some time ago. We've been working on the CRDC report itself for Pennsylvania for quite a while, simply because of the incident management and the log entry. Having to make the report look at both of those entities took quite a while for us to actually get the report done. And that will be released February 13th. I'm not sure if all of you know, the federal government keeps changing the window open date. They did say that the window was going to open in February, and now I think they just recently changed and said it's going to open in March. Once the window does open for submission, you have 75 days. So still not quite sure when that window is open. The latest was that it's going to be open in March. You will have the reports in on the February 13th release, the reports themselves. And this year the reports run, and you can do PDF, and you will also have flat files. And all that information is in the guide. So when you run the report, it actually produces a zip folder that contains the flat files and the PDF. So if you come over here to your system reports page and you click on state reporting, you're not going to see CRDC. We took them off. We took the old ones off. People were trying to run them, and they weren't getting their data like they expected. And so the new ones will be released and will be listed here at the top of the page on February 13th.
Very good. So that's what's coming out on Friday, the report, the actual templates, right?
Yes.
Or reports, yes. I suppose, yes. Right.
All the data submission, all the data entry is in PowerSchool. There's a student page, so there's a tab for the CRDC. If you pick a student and you go to the state province, you'll see a CRDC tab, which has also been updated for the 13-14 collection. So you'll want to make sure that you have this data filled out correctly for 13-14 for the CRDC for your students. And if you mouse over these fields, you'll be able to see where the data is being kept, whether or not it's in the student table still being clogged, or if it's in a database extension table. Okay? Any questions about CRDC?
Let's see. I'm monitoring the question box, and it looks as if there is a question. It says, how do you capture the students for the 2013-2014 school year for the CRDC?
Well, the report is written to look at, various data elements. Obviously, this page needs to be populated, for those students that it applies to. We did make one change as far as gathering the aggregated data for retained students, and we are looking at your entry code. I think it's an E4 entry code, which is your entry code for retained students. Before the report looked at if their grade level had changed from one year to the next, the focus group actually recommended that we look at this entry code, and I think it's a much better way for us to get that data. So there's various ways that the data is being collected. If you look in the manual, I'm very, very proud of this guide. It's quite large, and we've documented the flat file output, and we've documented the PDF output. So if you look in the new CRDC guide, you will see where all the data, how it's being extracted, and where all the fields that it's coming from. We've documented all of that.
So that's in the CRDC guide, in the state reporting guide? Okay.
It has its own separate guide.
Very good. I think I have seen it.
Yeah. If you come in here to Power Source, quickly come in here, and you go to your state documentation page, just come down here really fast. You go to state reporting guides. This CRDC guide was released on the 23rd. So this is brand new. It's much, much more intensive, or, it has a lot more documentation in it than the old CRDC guide has in it. At the beginning of this guide, I also do a kind of a step-by-step for setup. So if you take a look at that, hopefully that will help you know everything that you need to know to set up. You look under here where it says additional resources. In the guide, it's basically telling you this is a setup reference of everything that needs to be set up. Okay? And then if you look here under the report output, you can see where each data element we're basically saying here where that is being extracted from.
Okay. So more specifically, the question was asking to address last year's graduating students and that they would need to be pulled onto the reports for 13-14. And I would think that would be captured in looking at historical student data for those reports.
That's right. Exactly. Okay. If there's not any more questions, I'll take a few minutes. I think we still have a little bit of time to go over staff-student subtest. Do you think?
We do. Let me just address one other question that's in the box here. It's not so much state reporting, it's more core. And while I'll do this because then if anybody else has had this in this situation, they can maybe put a comment in. But there's a user who is on 7.11. They updated to the latest state reporting last Friday, and now they can no longer search on their student activities. And support is saying to update to 8.2. They're asking if there's any other workaround, and I didn't have exactly that situation, but I did have a similar situation with one of our districts, and I know that there was a solution, and I don't think the solution was updating to 8.2. I think there was something else having to do with customization and having to look at that page and what customization is applied and then adjusting that customization. So again, Chris, it's not really your state reporting area, but it was a question in the box. if anybody else can help this user out with a little more insight, just add it into the comment area or into the questions area, and we'll try to make it known what a solution could be.
I know that there was an issue which was, I think we actually contacted directly each of the customers that were on 7.11 in regards to state reporting, and that is when we had a release where we updated for early warning system, and I'm just going to show you really quick. What we did for early warning system, we had to update I think it's the final grade setup page. So let me just switch to schools here. I'm not even sure I have it on the update on my test server, but if you go to school setup and you go to final grade setup, there was a customization that we had to add to this page, which caused us to basically extend the page and add an extension table for the grade bin for this table where this data is kept. And when we did that, you can see this down here, the early warning system dashboard, marking period code. So the state has, for the early warning dashboard, they have very specific marking period codes, and what people are going to have to do that are going to use early warning system, for example, you're going to have to take their final grade marking period code, which is, for example, here Q1, and map it to a state one. For some people that might be different. If they're on trimesters or whatever, they maybe didn't do TR1 when they set up their final grade setup. For other people it might be exactly the same, but in any case you're going to have to map. You'll start seeing a lot of this kind of thing all over in PowerSchool. We've had to do a lot of we've had to extend a lot of tables, do database extension tables for various tables in PowerSchool for the early warning system that probably normally we would not have done. But when we added this, this customization for the early warning system, if you were not on 8, it caused a problem with database extension tables, generally speaking. And those folks that are on 7.11 have been given the directions and a KB article on what they need to do to still be able to use other extension tables, such as the student table, which has been, has its own extension table now. So if anybody who's on 7.11 is having a problem with database extension tables, such as the student extension table not working after they take a state reporting update, please contact support, because there is a KB article on what you need to do until you update to 8, what you need to do every time you take a state reporting update. Basically what happened was when we did an extension table for this table, which I think is the grade term bins table, it caused it so the rest of your extension tables or child tables, standalone tables, would not initialize unless you were on 8. And so for those people who have not updated to 8, that is the issue that I know of that has something to do with state reporting. And all of those people should have been contacted. We did a survey and found out the districts who were not on 8, and there was a tech note that went out, and there was a KB article that pointed them to the KB article. And basically, every single time you take a state reporting update, you have to follow that KB article process. So that's the issue that I know of. I don't know of the searching issue that you mentioned. I don't know of that issue.
Okay, thank you. I think that will at least provide some guidance as opposed to just updating to 8.0 or 8.2. Many districts, I think, intend to do that, but they were just looking at a point in time that was more convenient to do it, and that might not be to the summertime.
Right.
I remember one of our districts did run into that issue, and I just can't recall what the resolution was, but we did find a resolution.
Okay.
Without upgrading.
Right.
Okay. So now, did you want to
Okay. Yeah.
take us through some of the other exciting changes?
Sure. So for the new requirements for staff student subtests, basically, were 2 new columns were added to the report. The report was actually changed too. There were a lot more columns that were in the last report. This time, if you look at the PIMS manual, I think there's 11, and 11 are required. And only the reports that, only the courses that require testing. For example, Algebra 1, the students in an Algebra 1 class are probably going to get the Keystone test for algebra. Those are the only courses, the only PVAS relationships that are going to be reported. Last year, on the staff student course template, all of the courses could be reported, and the PVAS only looked at the ones that impacted the student-teacher relationship for testing. This year, the only ones that are going to be extracted are the ones that actually do have Keystone or some kind of testing attached at the course or section level. So I'm going to show you courses first. What we did here is we added two new fields. So I'm just going to click on my algebra course. And you'll be able to see where we've added the Keystone subtest identifier and the PSSA subtest identifier. So for your algebra course, you can see where I've actually know that I'm going to have 8th graders taking some of this in this course. So I've actually attached these 2 courses or tests at the course level. I'm also going to show you that in sections you're able to override this. I don't have this updated on my page, but we put the test date, the Keystone test date, and the PSSA test date also all together, all grouped together. So when you, if you took the update that went out on last Friday, you should have all of these fields, and they should all be under the same header all together. The test date, the PSSA test date, the Keystone test date, the subtest identifier, and the PSSA subtest identifier. There's some other scenarios that we're actually having the report calculate. So you might have a scenario where a 7th grader and an 8th grader could be in an algebra class, and we're actually going to be looking at grade level of the student to determine whether there should be a teacher and student relationship for those subtests. So right now it's only possible to add 2 tests on, but we're actually going to be looking at the grade level of the student as well to determine whether or not there should be a teacher and student relationship for these subtests. If we go look at sections, you're going to see the same fields added there. And some other information that we added. So we'll go in here to sections. So you can set those subtests at the course level, and then you can override them at the section level. So if we get down here to the section level, you can see where it says same of course, and then it also has the value that's already been set at the course level so that it lets you know, well, this is what you set at the course level. Do you want to make it different at the section level? You're more than welcome to do that. You would just click on the drop down here and choose which one you wanted to attach. And the same with the PSSA subtest identifier. Now, there are reasons why you would want to exclude a student that's enrolled into a course or section entirely, enrolled into a section, from having a teacher and student-teacher PBAS relationship. If, for example, and the state actually did, I reached out to the state and gave them examples of scenarios of why I would think I would need to exclude a student or not exclude a student from having this teacher relationship. So if you have a student that is retaking a class, an algebra class, for example, but they already took the Keystone test and passed it, then you're not going to want them to have a relationship at all. You're not going to want to report that. So we've actually added a new page here, and if I click on that, this is where I can exclude the students entirely from being included in the staff-student subtest report. They won't even have any kind of relationship with a teacher at all, even though they're enrolled into the sections. And there's various scenarios, reasons why they would not be included. I will try to include those scenarios in the state setup guide. So there will be an area in the state setup guide that will describe how to set this all up, the step-by-step of setting up your staff-student subtest report, and what are some of the examples of scenarios of why you would exclude a student. Once I click Submit here, then back on the sections page, you will actually, it will display the students that you chose to exclude. So those will be there. We've had people ask, can they import into this table? And yes, you can. This is a child table. It's a new table. It's in your database extensions. It's a child table. And yes, you can import into it. Okay? So if you know the kids that you want to exclude and you want to put that on an import template, you're more than welcome to do that. We still have the same page that we've had in the past, that we had last year, where you actually create those additional staff-student instructional relationships if they're different than the relationship that you have already assigned to the section. So right here at the section level, we're saying that the lead teacher is teaching all the students in this class 100%. But if there is a special ed teacher or a response to intervention teacher or anyone else that's coming in and having an impact on the student for testing, then you're going to want to make an additional relationship for that student. And you do that by clicking on this link. At the top of the page, it's going to display who you have assigned at the section level and what their allocation is. When you click on New, it's going to list all the students, including those that have dropped the section. From the drop-down, you can pick that additional teacher that is working with those students. You can select the students that that teacher is working with. You can put the percent of time that the teacher is working with those students. I'm going to pick some students down here on the list a little bit here. Let's just say this teacher is working with those 3 students 50% of the time. And then even if she's working with one of these students slightly different percentage of time, you can even put that amount in as well here. And then you also need to make sure that the relationship start date and end date is filled in properly. Maybe this special ed teacher didn't come in right at the beginning of the school year and start working with the students. Maybe it was later on. So you're going to create that relationship, click Submit, and I'm not going to do it on my page because my dates here are kind of scawampus. I have this Apple Grove data set that's got this strange year in it, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. I get an error when I do it. So But once you create this relationship, you will need to make a new relationship for the lead teacher for those students. There was not a way in the report that we could provide all the algorithms needed for all the different scenarios. The reason being is the start date and end date can be ever-changing. I can have a teacher that maybe came in and worked one day, and that changes everybody's dates for relationships for that student. And as we worked through the report last year, there were so many scenarios that kept coming up that we finally went back to the drawing board and said, well, when they come to this page, once they create a relationship with these students, with another teacher, they have to make a matching relationship for the lead teacher or the co-teacher that they've assigned at the section level. Okay? Any questions about that? This data also can be imported in. If you have become familiar with Page and Data Management, Data Import Manager, and Data Export Manager, that is where you're going to have to get up to speed on learning how to use that new functionality, which allows you to import into new standalone tables, child tables, and extension tables. So I recommend, and I know that I've gone over that a lot in on the monthly calls on database extension tables and all how that's working, but you're more than welcome to, if you have this data on a spreadsheet, to import that information in. Okay. Looks like there's some questions maybe. That's pretty much it. That was really all we needed to do for this report. We also needed the report, like I mentioned, right now it's going to be looking at grade levels to determine PVAS kinds of data for those students that could be enrolled in an algebra class. I'm just going to pull up the PIMS manual here. As you notice, it says 11 fields, 11 collected. They're all required, and that is why only the courses or sections that have a test, attached, a subtest attached, will be extracted on this report, because the subtest the test description, the subtest identifier, those are required fields. So only those courses and or sections that have tests attached to them, subtest identifiers attached to them, will be extracted. I think that's pretty much it.
I'm looking in the questions box, and there's not too much in there, but there was one added. So the question is phrased like this: is there a way to move the primary instruction language from the section to the course screen? If not, what's the easiest way to mass populate that field? So my guess is that it's the sections table and the courses table that field resides on. And if you know anything more about that field, you can...
I think we've had questions about the primary instruction. So right now that's at the course level, and someone's asking, can we put it at the section level?
No, it's the opposite.
Oh, it's at the section, and you want to know.
Opposite. Right.
Okay. Do you know which report this is extracted on?
Maybe the person asking the question can add that in.
Is it the course instructor, or is it the... I think it's a course instructor. I think I looked this up before, and because of the requirements, it was, we couldn't put it at the course level for some reason, but I can't remember that. So
okay. Tina, are you able to indicate which template you're extracting to try to get that field? If you can put that into the chat or the questions box, that would help us.
So right now, this course, this primary instruction language code, it's just in the sections table. None of these fields have been migrated yet over to the what would be the sections extension table. That's part of the project that we're going to be, addressing further later on this year. Right now, if you mouse over these, you can see that they're in the sections table, and you can see the field names. So you can just mass populate those by either doing quick import and updating your sections on an import, which I think you need to have the section number and the course number to update a section on an import. Or you can go to DDA and mass modify this field. You can do a filter, whatever, and then just mass modify this field because it's still in the section table. Yeah, so course instructor. So let me look up the requirements for this. I think there was a reason why I read the requirements and I was like, oh, I don't see how we can add that. So the primary instructor language code, primary language in which the course is taught. So, you know what, create a case, and we maybe can, I mean, the course instructor template, I know it does pull each section, but it doesn't look like that this would necessarily be a problem to add it to at the course level. Maybe when I looked in volume 2 and I saw what the choices were, I was kind of like, oh, let's see. Primary instruction language code. Just looking at it, you know, quickly, I would say I don't see an issue with adding this at the course level, but it would be really helpful if you could create a case for that, and then that will go to support and we'll look into adding that to the courses. So the way to mass update these fields right now is just by updating your courses on a quick, you know, just do quick import, and on a spreadsheet you would just have this field, and you can update your courses by having the course number and the course name on a spreadsheet, and then whatever fields that you're updating. And then also for sections, if you want to update a section in mass, you can do that also on an import, and that again is the course number and the section number, and then whatever fields that you're updating and the values for those fields. None of these have been migrated yet. So if you mouse over the new fields, any new field that we've added, they are in, for example, the keystone subtest identifier. That is in the PA_SEC_ table, and there is a way that you can import into that as well, okay, using Data Import Manager. So if you go to System, Page and Data Management, and there's Data Import Manager and there's Data Export Manager. You need to become friends with these two areas, these two new areas of PowerSchool. Okay?
Okay, that's good. I think that answered the question, you know, of how that it can be done in mass. Mm-hmm. The person asking the question did clarify that it was the course and the course instructor templates for the last HQT upload. But okay. Yes, can be done in mass, so it doesn't have to be done by hand for each of those courses and sections.
Right. Right.
And looks like that's it with the exception of one, and that one is looks like a user was trying to add or get their school ID for CRDC, and when I'm not sure exactly where, he indicates he tried to click a link in CRDC area and to get his school ID, and it took him to the 2013 CRDC.org site that doesn't appear to be correct.
Right. We know about that issue, so we'll be fixing that link. But I think that somewhere out there on the federal CRDC website are the correct codes for those numbers.
Okay.
I don't know where they are exactly. I do know, though, that we recently got a ticket saying that when they clicked on the link that it took them to the wrong place. So
okay. So we'll have to do some
we are
investigating.
getting that fixed. Yes, we are getting that fixed.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it looks like that covers the questions that have been logged to this time. So
okay,
it's been a nice run through, and
there's a lot.
There is a lot.
You guys have a lot to do as well. I always know that whenever we're working on something that I'm passing it down, and there's a whole bunch of work going on out there at each of the district levels to get the data in. So we try to get it in here as quickly as we possibly can. The state did have, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, they had a lot of new requirements for this year. So hopefully we're staying on top of all of those. I know we were cutting it close with the staff student subtest, but hopefully you'll all have time now to get your data in, and that report will be coming out. So,
right. Very good. Well, we appreciate having you speaking to us today, Chris.
No problem.
Always good to hear from you and to get a little bit of visuals on where things are located and what they look like. We'll continue to apply the state reporting updates as they come out and work through the new data, the data entry screens and generating the new templates as they become available.
Okay.
So thank you. That pretty much concludes our user group meeting for this winter Psug, and I'll again show the PowerPoint page that shows our information of how you can contact us. We also want to leave you in closing with the PowerSchool Academy dates so you can begin to plan your summer training. And this year, again, we will have our PowerSchool University at Capital Area IU in Enola, Pennsylvania, which is near Harrisburg. And those dates will be June 22nd through 25th. So that's a Monday through a Thursday. More information will be coming. You can expect pricing to be similar to last year, as well as the courses to be configured in the same fashion as last year's scheduling. So, however, if you want specific topics, let us know, and you can contact us, drop us an email at support@pssolutions.org. Thanks for being on the call with us today. Dave or Cheryl, if you have anything you'd like to say, chime in quick. Otherwise, we'll sign off.
Not me. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Chris. And I know Tim and Renee aren't on the call anymore, but they were great presentations, and we would appreciate any input as far as PS Academy topics that you would be interested in. So thanks. Hope everyone got to work today safe and survives the rest of the winter.
All right. Thanks for producing the show today, Dave. You can sign us off. Bye-bye.